We're getting set up here for live streaming, so it'll be just a second. Thanks.
Mhm.
We're on.
Okay, we are on and we're a little behind time, so we appreciate everyone. Let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Tim is joining from,
Yeah.
oh, there's Tim.
And then we're getting set up in your end of live stream, so I think that's what happened last time.
Oh, yeah.
And where are we going with that? Okay, we're on and we're a little behind time, so let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I would close the internet.
Yeah. And then I think that's where I did it though. That's what happened last time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry for that. That's we're still learning the technology in this room and trying to get things arranged. But anyway, I did see that someone.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I'm sorry to the board members. I hadn't printed material. I probably should have emailed you.
Thank you.
Let's see if I maybe can do that still. Did I do that? No, I didn't. Okay. It'll work. We'll have it up on the screen so they'll be able to see it once we get to that point. I'm just going to my email real quick because I think Heidi said something here. Okay. Email me. I don't know. Oops. Okay. I will be a little late, so we'll go ahead and get started. First, what I'm going to pull up is the score sheet. We do have a quorum. Yeah,
We have a quorum.
yeah, we have a quorum
Heidi,
without
but
Heidi.
Still would love to have
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. She's running about 15 minutes behind, but by the time we get started, she may be able to join us without a problem. Okay, I'm going to share the scoring sheet that we have. Let's see here.
Did Marlo just drop off?
I don't know.
I thought I saw her online here with us, and now she's not here. I don't know if you were counting her for quorum.
No, she's not part of this committee.
Oh, that's right. I'm on cultural arts with her. Sorry.
Right. Okay, what you see here are the scores that the folks have in front of you. What I've done here, this is just them in raw form with the scoring ranked from the highest score to the lowest score. And Porter, did you want to kind of go through that standard deviation and the blue and pink that?
Well, the first thing is to go over this and just make sure everybody understands that we have, I think this may be the largest applicant group we've ever had.
Correct.
So, we have to remember this is an annual competitive grant program. A lot of people, and I understand, would love to be line itemed on this, but that's just not how it works. It's a grant program. So the other thing is now we have the greater challenge and we've got more, which is a great thing. We've got more people seeking funding, which is also great. It was great to sit through those presentations and hear all the new stuff that's happening. And there's a practical side. We have $150,000. And the ask this year is the greatest ask I've ever seen, which is $345,714.25.
Wow.
So yes, there is no way that everybody will get the funding they are seeking. And I just like to put that right up front. And then I say, thank you to you guys and all of you guys online who went through and scored these, because I know it's a big job and we really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much for sitting through those presentations. I hope that was helpful and enlightening as well. So I want to start there.
Right.
So yes, we've set up, so the first year we did this, we have a bit of a hiccup. We did an old style dot system. So we put all the grant applications up, and I think there were maybe 20. And everybody just put dots on the ones that they favored. That wasn't a real scientific approach. We had an intern, he helped me create this. So this actually gives you a standard deviation. And more importantly, it's not so much the math, it's the color coding. So you can see pretty quickly how this played out as far as how you guys scored. All your scores are in here, and the standard deviation, either -1 or +1 or beyond, then shows up in either red or blue. The idea behind this is, one, the scoring counts. You know, you guys have done that. That gives you sort of a priority list of where you are. This calls out any sort of anomalies, which the hope behind that is that maybe there's some discussion. This is not purely a numbers game. This is also you guys offering your inputs, because you guys are the people who are, you know, in the community experiencing these things. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. I know Tim's familiar with this process. It's been a great way to just, you know, help encourage people, you know, even if something's ranked lower, you know, it may be worth arguing to say, well, I think it should actually be pulled up into the mix.
And Heidi just joined as well.
Oh, great.
I would also like to mention that, Anthea, you recused yourself from your
Right.
one, and what we did was we took an average of everyone else's scores to basically compensate for your loss of the score, because if we would have left it there, you would have ranked so much lower. So we took an average of the board's thing to put your score in for that. So
And if there's any deliberation on that grant, we'll ask you to leave.
Okay.
So if there's not, then we're okay. But if you guys want to talk about that particular grant, let's pause and let Anthea leave the room. Okay.
Right. Okay, so what I have here is, this is basically showing the ranking from number 1 to number 10. This other number, that's just the general number. That was the way they were arranged on the page originally, and I think it was alpha order. So that means nothing. So I could actually probably just remove this whole line, so that's not even relevant to us. I'm just going to delete it for now. Okay, so scores 1 through 35. And on the sheets of paper that you have along the side, so if we were funding them at 100% at the number 10, it equals 112,000. Those are those numbers off to the side. And I'm sorry to the 3 board members that are online, but you might just note that if you were to rank the top 10, like fund number 1 through number 10, from Lawrence Buskerfester to the Nutcracker, that would be $112,000 total. And then I just show going down to the number 20, that goes, if you go 1 through 20, that's $212,729
At
full funding. So just to let you know, and I know last year we did this 10, and then we did certain percentages from there, and that's what the deliberation is for. So what I've also done here is I've ranked them. This is scored at 100%. So again, like I showed, if you're doing that, that equals
148.
Yeah, 148.
Pretty close, just
That
after
was to number, let's see,
the 12.
13. Yeah, to number 13. To get to 148, that's at 100%. And then I also did 90%.
Just to show you.
Just to show you where you're at. And so that got into number 15. If you were doing, you know, ranking them by 100%, 80% was going down to number 17. I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with classes these days. And then this is 75%. You go down to just one more, basically, is what you did there, it looks like. And then by half, if you were doing everything by half, it would go clear down to number 27. So that's just some thoughts for you to kind of mull over as you start deliberating and figuring out that percentage. So I guess I will be quiet and let
I'm just thinking, last year was the first year after COVID. And Anthea's been part of this process, and Tim's been involved too. I just want to put on the table that the board last year was very generous in the sense that they really wanted to fund everybody as sort of a COVID recovery response. That isn't required. And I think, we need to get back on track as to, how are we going to support the events in the best way possible, make sure they have the appropriate funding to really benefit their events. So just want to put that in the mix as well.
Well, and I also think it goes back to that ultimate mission that we kind of looked at as the guys, as you were basically analyzing it and scoring it. Those things need to be ruled as part of that overall, did they meet these expectations from the board?
Right.
So if you want me to do any other difference scorings, if there's a 10% that you want to go down to, and then, or, whatever level of funding you want to do, we can play around with that as well. So
you should go back
to the original
names,
yeah.
We can track whatever they're, and we can change things, as we work through this.
Didn't you, like last year, wasn't it like maybe the first one or two were at 100% and then it went down to like 90% and then it went down to 80%?
Right.
Yes, that's the way they did it.
It doesn't have to all be the same percentage. You
Yeah.
can use different percentages.
That's when I saw that last year, I thought, that's kind of a cool, reasonable way of. I mean, your point's really valid too, though, Porter. There's how many 35 applicants this year? Next year, there might be 55. You can't keep doing that to the point where,
Right.
I mean,
Here's your check for $2.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I would imagine too, that all of these organizations that are on the top, that got the top 4 or 5, have probably, if I remember correctly, they have pretty big ads and they have pretty decent budgets too. Like, if everybody takes a little bit of a cut, as you go down to different areas, that it does spread it out a little bit more, which seems, I do like that equity of that, but.
Well, I guess the question that I would start the conversation with, is there ones that you want to fund at 100%? I think that's probably the first basis that you wanted to look at. Are the top scorers ones that you want to fund at that level?
How about if we were to try 75% for for the top 4?
Okay.
And that number comes from.
Oh, you do have it good.
Yeah, I made sure we had.
I'm just thinking if we do that, if we do 75% for the top 4, what that might look like, and then maybe 5 down to 10, maybe we do like a 60%, what that might look like.
Oh, I had 10. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So
And then
you've used half with that method right there.
Exactly half.
Yep, exactly half. And then maybe 40% for the next 5.
You're really going to start a discussion here, Heidi, I think.
Well, I'm just kind of,
One more.
Oh,
I mean, it is interesting because it's kind of arbitrary too, but there is maybe more, I don't know, equity in that, yeah.
now, what's the next one, Heidi? Because now we're at 93, I think.
What number? are we at?
93,000, yes.
so maybe 15 to 19 is 35%. And again, I'm just throwing numbers out here just so we can all look at them. And I was there as well with Anthea when it was post-COVID, and I think it really meant a lot that people were able to get something rather than nothing.
Did you say that 20 or 19? You said, because I did 5 there.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
And then maybe we do
Where are we?
30% for the next 5.
We have enough?
We'll see. Right. We haven't allocated yet, so that's good.
Right. It's kind of just an exercise at this point in my mind. And then maybe we do,
124.
maybe we do 25%
Hang
at the bottom.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Where are you? At what?
We're at 124, we still have.
124, okay.
And you said
Okay.
25 for, as
The
far as,
remainder. Let's see what 25 for the remainder looks like, and then maybe if we can't do the remainder, maybe we can lower the last 3 or 4.
So that's,
you're under, based on.
whoa.
Okay, so I want to just offer, I mean, I think I agree that we can look at tiering this, but I think any event that's fallen a standard deviation below the average shouldn't even be considered. I mean, there are a number of these events that I just, based on my history with TGT, they just don't fit what we're trying to do, and we shouldn't be funding them. And that's why they have really bad scores. It isn't to me say that the event's a bad event. It's just not within the purview of what TGT is about. And so we don't have to be everything to everybody. And I think my suggestion would be that we focus on the events that we collectively as a group have said, wow, these kind of seem to fit the program. And I mean, we're all very different people, and you can draw some pretty strong conclusions from this list without dipping down into that very low range, and maybe even somewhat above that even.
Okay, so Tim, to help hone in the discussion, where is your line of demarcation? Would you say,
Well, I mean,
based on the way that you're reading your numbers?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, clearly we've ranked 4 of these 1 standard deviation above everything, right? The top 4 are 4 events that we have all said press the red button and hit the nail on the head. And so I guess in my thinking, it's like, well, maybe they should be funded fully. It's okay. It's okay to give them full money because these events draw tons of people to town. They're available across all genres, and they have huge cultural significance, and they're truly unique. So I don't have any problem funding somebody to 100% to the exclusion of another event that doesn't check all those boxes. And that's just solely my opinion. But when I looked at these numbers, it was really clear to draw the lines numerically where this stuff sits out. And it is okay. We ran into this in the early years of TGT. People are going to be disappointed. And the desire was always to help as many people as we could help. But, at some point in time, these are events that have taken, they've taken kind of what we've given them, and they've turned it into something really good. And they continue to further that cause. And we're recognizing that value here.
Good, really valid points.
100%.
Okay, so that leaves us 98 to spread out.
I guess what I would like to steer the conversation then is there agreement to 100% for those top 4? I think that's a good place to start.
I think so, for the reasons that Tim kind
And
of
what
brought
does
up.
that take us down to? 160, so we're 10,000 over?
Yes, with your plan and that plan mixed together a little bit. But then you're jumping from 100 to 60% instead of having that 75 there.
What if you were to take 30 to 35 down to 0%?
Yeah. Or maybe what's
So from from where?
Line 31,
or
you-
27.
that one? Yeah, take the rest of those down to 0 and let's see where we're at.
Yeah.
So from 25%, or what? I'm not.
Yeah, from 25% to 0. No, not all of them. Just from UA futures down, make those 0.
So I think it's a valid point then. I think that Tim's point's valid, which means that the next 4 or 5 that have pretty good numbers too shouldn't, as you were just noting, go from 100% to 60%. That doesn't seem fair either, because they obviously scored
Yeah, they're pretty
decently
close.
well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the standard deviation starts with the number rank score of 27.
Yeah.
And so I feel like anything that is a standard deviation below what we as a group have decided just needs to be cut. And if they want, to talk about how in the future we can make their applications stronger, we can always offer that. But I mean, they clearly fell to the bottom, much more so than the ones rose to the top.
And for a variety of reasons, at
Yeah.
least for my decisions. Some of it was disorganization or not following the instructions, and some of it was they were showing more profits than what they were even their expenses. And some of them didn't meet the criteria of being culturally enhancing to Lawrence.
So maybe the 60% could go to 75%? Since those are up near the top.
Oh, sorry, let me get this out of the way. So let me do this. Sorry, I took that thing down so we could see the whole screen.
He's doing great. It's never easy to do this publicly.
It's all good. Okay, so 75. Enter. Oh, look, it's a percent. That's exactly what I was wanting. I need to go over here. Me.
Oh, yeah. Actually, you need to go one up, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I'll expand it here.
There you go.
Okay, so that's 45. Let me just
97K.
Let me just go down here and we'll do a sum here too. How does it do this? This Michigan is not mine at all. Oh, I'm hitting delete stuff there. Okay, so you're 97 with those, just those two things.
And just to follow up, I would agree with Tim that those last 25%. I mean, it's kind of a weird line to draw it where it is right now. I mean, I think you set it at one standard deviation and get rid of those three. But
Okay.
Oh, so close.
Well, keep in mind, this is important. You're only funding those, that's what the 97 is only the ones through 75%. So these, we should take, I mean.
Well, if you were to leave these, well, maybe we just remove these then.
That's what I'm saying.
And then you reestablish.
Yeah.
Because you had 60, I mean, again, you're jumping from 75 to 40 there, so, yeah. So you're at, let's make sure my math is right. Look, hey, we're good. Double checking, that's always good.
And one thing we did when we got to this point last year is looked at some of the organizations that had really small asks and had discussions about whether they would get more than 25% or whatever we had designated, since they were asking for so little. So like the Veterans Day,
Mardi Gras.
2,500. Yeah. And so to skew it a little bit since they didn't ask for much. But I'm just saying that's how we did it. We don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's a topic that you're putting out, so, thoughts, other thoughts on that?
I would agree with that. The small asks, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so which ones are those? And just tell me which lines and what amount. I'm not gonna do it for. Sorry.
Line 15, the Mardi Gras parade.
Thank you for providing the line. So at what level do you want it to be funded?
maybe 50%. And
And-
then
The deal still is.
25, Lawrence Veterans Day.
Are we even getting?
At 50?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do we want to go into the lower ones or just leave those?
No. No.
So
No.
Tim, so
Yeah.
Tim, your line of demarcation would be, that's what I was asking. So you're saying these
20.
right here below?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. And is everybody in agreement with that? That's the other piece that I want to make sure.
I just want to speak on the Rivet Up Hot Rod Show. I know she kind of had her numbers a little upside down. I think that was her thing on that
Which
budget.
one?
The Rivet Up Hot Rod Show. I'm just proposing putting that maybe at 50%, just because, I mean, they pay out of their pockets, I guess,
That's true.
for most of the event.
Yeah,
I like the event. I think it's great for downtown. Maybe like that at 50 or something, because I think they're only at 5,000.
mhm.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm good with that. Yeah.
I would do the same thing then on line 12 for Mixmaster at 5,000. If we want to keep it fair that way.
I agree. That's an excellent event.
Yeah.
So, I thought one of these events, and I'm trying to scramble through my applications right now, but I thought, yeah, one of these, the Baroque by Candlelight. I mean, they requested like $980. I don't even see them on the list.
Well, that was one that,
There-
Porter, you want to speak to that? That's the one that the email came in.
They're
The
30,
budget change.
That's the one
33.
from last year.
No, the budget change.
Yeah, that,
You-
it says a tour of Italy outreach program, Baroque by Candle.
Sorry, you
33.
said, that change it because that other board member had a different budget line that you had me change going in.
Okay. Well, it doesn't matter because
Sorry,
it was
I'm
one
sorry.
standard deviation down anyway. So sorry, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It was at 2,800 and something.
Oh, so they put 800, it was just wrong.
They had the wrong number in the
Okay.
budget. And it did get changed. It's changed online. That's.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just I couldn't remember that specific one. I've also got the community arts grants going, so I just get confused between the two.
Yeah, there's some other, once they come in, and like I said, when they came all in at the same time, that last day we had 17, I think it was, or 18, probably within like 3 o'clock to midnight. There was somebody at 11:57 that actually uploaded. We did have some people contact us that they had put in erroneous information, so we had to change some stuff in there. So yeah.
Kind
So-
of sticking to the strategic plan and explore, and unmistakably Lawrence's kind of motto is diversity. I'm thinking that we should probably give something to the Dia de los Muertos community celebration, as well as the National African American Quilt Convention, to go along with our diversity in town. And these two would be new for us.
No,
We've not seen these before, and I think that
no, they're not. That the National African American Quilt Convention, I don't believe is new to us. It is new to us this year.
yeah,
Am I
Yeah,
correct,
that's been
Porter?
That's been funded historically, and then it took a hiatus, and now she's bringing it back. So that has been funded in the past.
I'm actually fairly opposed to funding that one because it's received a fair amount of money from us over the years, and I'd like to see consistency there for our funding to continue. I agree with you 1,000% on Dia de los Muertos. I think that's an awesome thing for us to fund.
so what if we were to go 40% on Dia de los Muertos?
My only question here, my only concern, and I just gonna throw this out here because maybe I have an opinion, maybe I don't. Sorry, I've got COVID, so I'm kind of cranky. But it's hard for me to justify us funding the Mardi Gras parade at 50% and then funding Dia de los Muertos at 40% when it actually scored higher. So I think we've got to keep our scoring in line. It just, that inherently feels wrong to me, to dip in and out of there. So I think I'm just feeling we need to be mindful of that.
So if we do 50% on that one then?
Yep.
I totally agree, Tim, because this can get really, depending on who's on the committee, having conversations around this, you can really, you know what I mean, that have opinions and flipping it for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
It's not really, yeah.
So I think you have to fund Nutcracker at 50%. I think we kind of set ourselves up into a cascading decision process, and maybe we save the last like $15,000, for just some pet projects that we feel deserves some additional consideration. But it would be really hard for me to deny Nutcracker and the half marathon when we funded people above and below them at that rate. And our group has actually scored them higher.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to do 50% on both of those, the half marathon and Nutcracker,
The two blanks above them, yeah.
I would also, I would like to suggest that we drop the FID pick. And I don't know, maybe you guys should override me. It's just, their $10,000 ask is more than their typical budget. And they have supporters and they have people that give them money. So when I looked at their application, I'm thinking to myself, that feels a little bit high, but then I'm violating my own rule about how do you treat somebody when we rank them. But that's only because I've been involved with this organization before. And I feel like they're kind of getting at our, they're getting extra money, and maybe they just get that. I don't know. That's up to you guys to decide. It's just me throwing it out there. I don't know how to solve it.
That's tricky, like you
Yeah,
said.
maybe they just win.
Setting a policy and then now we're flipping it again because
I know.
You have because you have inside information, which is important, but
agreed. I feel like we have to kind of stay consistent, but I just wanted to throw it out there. They'll apply next year, and maybe we can keep this in mind next year.
Tim, I want to ask you a question. With the quilt convention, your criteria was that they haven't been consistent?
Well, she got money, and she ran it, and then didn't she not do it for a while?
Yeah, but that's not, I just want to be careful not to penalize anybody because there's no requirement that they have to do it annually.
This just popped up and says preparing live stream.
Yeah, I don't know why
that's fair. I took that into account also on the lead horse open 5, because one of the questions we ask is, have you run what is it like? How many times in the last so many years, and does this have a chance of becoming a sustaining event? And I think if somebody is not doing it year after year, then I think one of those questions get answered no, and that impacts the project in my eyes.
Is it sustaining or signature? I want to be careful here.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to look.
I think it's signature, and I think you absolutely have a valid right to speak your opinion, but I want to be careful that
it says
the whole.
This is something that needs to be addressed earlier, like before you apply, stating, is this an event that has had like a consistent, or you know what I mean? Like, because what if, that's a good point too. Like it's an event that happened, it was popular, but then they decided not to do it for 3 or 4 years and then they come back again. Then it isn't sort of setting up that idea of providing money to build a foundation to have this robust program going every year, or if it's always every 2 years or whatever. But that's not really stated as part of judging it early on either. So
yeah, it says
right.
It says, is this an unmistakable established event? It has occurred annually for at least 3 years. Well, and this was one of the suggestions I was going to make for the application process next year, is that it should say like consecutively, not annually, because some of these people who have had the event annually elsewhere answered yes to that question, but they haven't had it annually here in Lawrence. And so when I look at that and I see that somebody hasn't had an event, I feel like it's impairing what we're trying to do, which is to develop continuing things. So that's my point about the inconsistency there. I also I would love to know how much money they've received from us over the years. So it'd be interesting to start tracking that for everybody, actually. But I just it gives me some pause.
When was the last time that quilt convention was given money? Because I mean, I've been on the board for quite a few years, and I just don't remember it unless it was named something different.
Well,
I think it was pre-COVID, wasn't it? Must have been, right?
It was pre-COVID,
Yeah,
and
I know she hasn't. Yeah.
And didn't it receive like a really big chunk of money one year?
The first year, it did, but after that, and I think it has been for various reasons, not annual. I'll see if I can find that information.
I feel the need for us, I mean, COVID is clearly an outlier, but for somebody who's going to grind away year after year to, even in good years and bad years, to make an event successful, I think, that's what we're trying to support here. I don't like kind of jumping in and out of things with people. It's not an indictment on the quality of the event. It's just, I think what we're trying to do is seed consistency.
Keep going, this will take me a while.
Yeah, part of me thinks that they go.
I need to have the Jeopardy theme music or something like.
Right.
Okay, 2018 was the last time it was funded, and it received $15,000.
And that was the last one.
Yeah, that was the last time it was funded, and I believe that was the last time because I think she was planning to take a year off and then COVID hit. Yeah.
Gotcha.
How many were funded that year? That's the other mix that and you had probably 75,000 total, correct? Or
yeah.
The number was less than the 120 that.
No, it was either, it started at 150, then it went to 120. I think that may have been a 120 year.
Okay.
And I want to say, like, in the very first year, it got, like, the very first year of TGT, it got like a big chunk of the money. I mean, because we put limits on what people could get, I think, after that, right?
Yes.
So I mean, I want to say it was like $40,000 or $45,000, but my memory, I'm getting old enough.
I think we have to be careful there though, too, Tim.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you. I'm not disputing what you're saying, but I want to keep it in context too, because others have received regular funding, which is probably amounts more than what they've received. So I think there's nothing that, it wasn't the fault of the applicant to receive that money at that time. So I just.
No, right.
Delicate territory here.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not her fault. It was our fault as a committee on how we funded those things. She's done absolutely nothing wrong. I think her event is fine. I just think it's inconsistent. And that is my objection. These other folks that we're funding have been consistent. I mean, from what I can tell. So I just happen to have the institutional knowledge of that particular event. It doesn't make it a bad event.
So that year was 150,000, and the TGT advisory board at that point funded half of 27 applications at 100%. So I mean, it's been done a variety of ways, just for everybody's awareness as well. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate all your perspective.
Pre-COVID, were percentages worked in scoring, or was it just 100% until you run out?
No, there were
different
things,
iterations.
different boards have handled it in different ways. That's accurate. It just happened that year. They decided to stick to the 100% and gave it to the top 14 applications.
And I would say that last year was the most unmistakably unique scoring.
Yeah.
Because it was my first time. More than anything.
I mean, a lot of these questions that I think we're having come up, and I know this has always been the conversation around this grant, which is, really it's about the criteria and what folks need to prove in their grant or show in their project, does it hit those criteria? I think the criteria that you put out from TGT is very limited, really, right? I mean, the criteria, there's no real specific criteria in a way. You'd like for folks to have some hotel stays. That's not even a criteria.
Well, it is a criteria, but it's not the only criteria.
Right.
And the rub is always that financial revenue generating option, which is hotel rooms.
Right.
And our unique, cultural personality.
Yeah.
The other challenge that we've had all these years is that, none of these are apples to apples comparisons.
Sure.
You have sporting events, you have cultural events. We had granny basketball for many years, it was fabulous.
Right.
So it's difficult to compare them.
Yeah.
And then it's a challenging grant, there's no question.
I mean, I guess that's the power of it, though, too. That's great that
Right.
Lots of different organizations can apply. But I do think the other thing, like in regards to hotels, people throw numbers down. I know with the powwow, we have a lot of people coming in from all over the United States. So I know there's a bunch of hotels, but there's other ways that people stay when they come to Orange too.
Right.
It is super hard to track. So when people put actual hotel room numbers down, I know that some can do that, but I really would like proof that really it was 100 hotel rooms, or it was, that is a tricky thing. So you could say, yeah, we have hotel rooms, but really no.
Well,
I mean, if that's part of the criteria and there's really no way to prove it,
Yeah.
that's a little tricky.
I've seen,
Well, I'll tell you, when we book groups off of these, if people contact us and they book groups, we actually put them into a group. Now, the other side of that, of course, is transient that comes in that aren't booking the group. Those are the real hard ones to find out. However, we also have the ability at our hotel, being a Marriott, that we put what they're doing in town for every single person who comes through town. So we can print that report at any given day and know that XYZ amount of people came in for the powwow, whether it's transient or whether they booked a group. So I think that the hotels have the opportunity to do something like that, having Royal Hampton here in town as well. So I know you can. It does take a little bit of time on the hotelier side to make sure that they're really tracking it, so that when we come into this each year, we can say, well, actually, you say you brought in, $30,000 in hotels. And if the hotels are really keeping track of that, they can say, well, no, actually you brought in 17,000 or less or whatever, or more for that matter. But there are ways for the hotels to track that. But again, to Porter's point, that's just one criteria, one line item.
Yeah.
As a hotelier, I would love to see all the sports up near the top.
Yeah.
But, that's just reality because they're going to stay. But on the diversity and the cultural side of me, which is the other half, I'm like, no, I want to see money go to, you know, the Barbershop Harmony or the iHeart Local Music, you know, because that brings culture and diversity to town. Whether we get as many room nights or not doesn't really, I mean, sure, I'd love it, but that's not what this is designed for. This is designed
But-
for bringing people to Lawrence.
Okay, well then, but it's part of the criteria, so, I mean, you know what I mean, like, it's part of the criteria though, so.
It is, it's number one.
Yeah,
And you
So-
know, over the years, there's been different ways that Explore Lawrence was able to measure some of this stuff. But of course, that would only pertain to an event that actually occurred where they could track that information.
exactly, and it
So
really
it's
depends on the,
Correct.
yeah, I mean, it's tricky, because it depends on the population you're bringing in too, because you're bringing certain people in for certain things that are gonna be much easier to track, and they're gonna go to the traditional hotels that are very involved. And, you know, quite frankly, for the powwow folks, I don't know, you know, a lot of folks are staying in a variety of places.
Right.
And it's not your normal, and most of those people are not, in fact, probably 99% are not staying at the Marriott, you know?
Right, right, yeah.
So, yeah, just, it's.
No, you're right. You're
And when
absolutely
it's part of the criteria, that makes it, yeah, sort of challenging.
right.
Well, Anthea, you're right. And I think that's why the scoring sheet has evolved to the point that it is today.
Yeah.
Because actually early on in TGT world, the committee was at least half hoteliers. And so it was geared heavily towards, it felt that way at least. And it's really refreshing to hear Heidi, you know, give her opinion about, you know, there's cultural things and there's hotel important things, and they're not the same. But I feel like the application kind of mitigates that to some extent now. You know, I mean, FidPic's a prime example. FidPic draws tons of people overnight, actually over weekend, to Lawrence. But it is the nature of the people who come to FidPic that they don't stay at hotels because they have a network here.
Yeah.
And so we have all those other factors that we can use to rank it,
Sure,
you know.
sure, yeah.
So what if we were to just stick in to kind of look at the numbers? What if we were to stick in like 30% between the 250s that are on the board? Since we've got like $29,000 left.
Oh, you saw what I did there.
I saw what you did there, Roger.
Well, I thought it'd be important. Yeah.
And then based on the numbers below that, if we didn't want to, I mean, except for the ones that we did, you know, for not a lot of money, maybe we could bump up something up top a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd be more inclined to bump those 50%ers to 60%ers. Only because it looks like where that 50% cuts off is where the score is at 200, and you know, 300 possible, that's the top third.
Yeah.
Where are we? I can't see where we are. You're younger, can you see that?
Okay.
Yeah, we have
Eight.
We have 8,000 left.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm wondering, so I think somebody mentioned this earlier, what if we get to a point like where we have, let's just say 5,000 left? What if we just then take that 5,000 and distribute it, you know, even if it's like 34% or something like that, to ones that we feel are culturally really important, or, you know, like Dias de los Muertos, I think is a very cool event. I think it's something that would be great. We don't really have a lot of events in Lawrence that are in support of our Latino population. I've not really seen any, you know, and put our money where our mouth is a little bit that way too. I don't know, just a thought.
Just bump them up by 5 or 10%.
Or yeah, there's a couple of percentages, whatever, for with that little bit of money left over.
I mean, like almost as like a special mention.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like it's, you know, someone was talking about representation, you know, and supporting maybe more diverse offerings, and that would be one way of doing it, but just a thought. am fine with everyone saying nay.
I don't disagree with that. My preference here is that I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for 2 seconds. I've probably been doing it the whole meeting, but I want to fund as many organizations as possible, but I want to fund as few as possible so that the effect is greater. But secondarily, there's kind of an administrative component to this too, because every one of these grants, if we let out a grant for $1,000, that's something that Porter has to track. That's an annual report that has to be received and verified, and I feel like administratively we start kind of spinning our wheels. So just having said that, I'm fine, bumping some of these up, but I wouldn't really want to add any more organizations to the list because I think the impact of our grant is diminished and the impact on the administrative support for our committee is doubled.
I hear you. And what I thought of when you were mentioning that, then this idea of like, let's say we give Dia de los Muertos, like, a couple of percentages more, and they're in the middle of the what are they? I can't see 60%, and they get 63 in the middle of everyone else getting 60%. It would be kind of like, that's weird. Why did they get that? So
yeah, I think we have to.
That wouldn't look right. And it.
Yeah, I think we have to give them all the same.
Yep, I retract that idea. Just a lot.
Yeah, no, I think you either, I think we bump up some of the existing ones. The list that we have is pretty good. When you look at it, we've got half of the applicants are funded from just a quick look. And they're funded in some significance, and so we've got $8,000. It's like, do you bump the 30%? Do you bump the 60%? But I think you have to bump them as a group.
How about if we try 35% on the 30s?
There's that 150 also, or maybe it should go up to 60.
Well, I think that was because we chose to go with the lower amounts.
Right.
I also, because we were just talking about like, it will look weird to have an outlier, I am always supportive of our veterans. I have lots in my family, but to have 3 above not get anything and then suddenly the veterans get a certain amount, what is our reasoning there?
That was from originally when we were looking at the low asks.
Right.
And then
I'm just saying it's still there. So I'm just kind of like, so.
What if you put everybody that's at 35, just put them all at 50%?
All right, I'm challenged here, trying to get my little. We'll smooth that up there.
You got to grab the little green box.
Yeah, no, it was not. Here, I'll just do this. It's easier.
And then if you eliminate the Veterans Day Parade.
Is that one? Yes. Oops.
Well, maybe I agree. I love the Rev It Up Hot Rod Festival. Maybe we have to just drop a part of theirs off or drop the bottom 2 off. I don't know.
How about 45% or 40% on that one? Well, not enough.
what about the next one up?
45 here.
Yeah, that'll get you more.
So one more up.
Still over.
There you go.
Just we've got one of theirs funded, right? Yeah, just food.
Yeah,
Yeah, they got their stock.
chamber.
Yeah, okay. Was UA Future America, is that a sports?
Under Armour.
Under Armour, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Never mind.
And could we just do 14987240150? Could we add the other 12760 to the Lawrence Art Guild Art in the Park? So they'd get 66,127.60. I don't know what percentage that would work out to, but
It's just, I would just change the percentage and see if we can get closer. That's what you're saying, is just increase
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
that 78.
there you go.
We can make that work.
$7.
Wow.
And it's 76.5, so maybe it is, well, I guess they rounded it up.
We can figure that out.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they're the next one down from the top.
76.6, let's see.
Well, actually, it'd be 77. Oh, it rounded up. I see.
Yeah,
I got you.
it's gonna do the same thing. Oh, no, it's between 7.47. I was close. So it's, let's see,
6.5.
5.5.
High five.
Oh, $3.60.
2.53. 76.53.
I think I just leave that on another number. It's like
We'll try changing that 5 to a 3.
here.
But now get rid of that last 5.
Oh,
She's saying 5.53, see if that works.
There you go.
it's
I say
higher.
that'll make it go up.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what I was trying to, yeah.
We'll make this work. We don't have to get it. We're competing with Excel to 280.
Yeah, so we agreed to give whatever the change.
Right, whatever the
to
change
Art in the
is.
Park.
Oh,
It's closer to 77, so, yeah.
All right.
hey,
Bam.
Nice.
Why, thank you.
I'm gonna call you Einstein from now on.
Don't leave it.
Okay, so further discussion on this is. And is there a motion that we would like to have to basically recommend this funding to the city commission for their approval?
I make a motion to recommend this funding breakdown to the city commission for their approval.
Second.
I have a first and a second for what?
Nothing, go ahead.
Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Great job, everybody. Really appreciate it. So this will go on to
The
the
19th of December, that's, yeah,
19th
the
agenda.
housekeeping items it'll be on the agenda for the 19th. It'll be on the consent agenda. Whether the city commission pulls it or not, Porter or myself, or both of us will be online to discuss and kind of talk about the deliberations that you had. But I just want to say thank you for your time. I know it takes a lot of time out of your schedules and your work life. And trying to balance a home life and a work life is often difficult, but the civic, I love people that take civics to heart. And I, as a public servant and working for you, in your city, in our city, I should say, that I truly appreciate volunteers that help us in our jobs. And I can't thank you enough for that. I would also say, Porter, do we want to speak to next year with this? Because it is kind of in
You
this.
stop the screen share.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Well, we mentioned the board before that the, the board and commissions committee has sent their recommendation, which is to move this program, and we don't know what that will look like, into prosperity and economic security. And so to be determined to where that goes. If we learn otherwise, obviously we would, continue working. And as we said, there's always a chance to tweak things. And Tim mentioned the evolutionary process of this has been good. It's a challenging grant situation. So anyway, that would be then on your watch to make any improvements. So we'll just have to see how that plays out.
It was really interesting to participate on this side of this process. And I have a lot of ideas.
Yeah, no, they're all appreciated. I was involved in grant making for many, many years, and I was naive coming into it as a younger person. I didn't realize how hard it is to give money away. Ironically, it sounds easy, but when you're trying to do it equitably, fairly, and benefit the right groups, it's not easy to do.
It's such a broad, it's so open, this grant, so I hear you. Most grants are very defined, right? Most grants are very defined.
Right.
You can apply, why you can apply, what you can apply.
Right.
Porter, I think when, depending on what our status is or, whatever we become, one thing is for certain, you will be the phoenix that rises from the ashes to oversee this program going forward. And I'll have some suggestions on, just the application, because I really felt like there were some things we could clean up this year. It may not be any of us, but for the good of the group and making sure things going forward are clear for those decision makers. I hope if anybody's got any ideas that we bring them forward, because it needs to happen.
Please write them down and actually send them to me, and I'll gather them. So at least if nothing else, we can pass them on.
Yeah.
But also then if we are doing this again, we'll definitely bring those to the forefront.
Yeah, I was just even thinking, like, when we were sitting around talking just before the panel presentations, right? And we had all kind of gone through the materials or looked through them and kind of ready. But then you see the presentations and you start getting into the budgets a little more and all that. And it's like, I had a million questions relating to the budget. The budgets to me were probably the most questionable things on all of them. And it would have been so cool. I mean, it would have made more time for the committee, but it really would have been interesting to sit with the committee and say, okay, this is what I'm seeing with this budget. Do you all see that as well? Because I think this is troubling. They're asking for 15,000 and they're going to profit 15,000 off this project. And you know what I mean? Like, I really needed those kind of conversations around that stuff.
Yeah, agreed.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Again, it'll be on the 19th of December for the city commission.
Thank you to both of you for leading us through this.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys have a great weekend.
You too.
You as well. Thank
Better,
you.
Tim.
Feel better.
Thanks.
But thanks for not being here too.